I think it was at the time that I reached about 170,000 monthly page views. It was the first time when I reached that number, and at approximately that number you need to make $1,500. It was about the same that I was making at the day job.
Hey guys, it's Mike from Make Time Online, and today we're joined by Anastasia from Anastasia Blogger. So this is the first episode of December, and it is the first episode of this mini Pinterest series. And I thought it was a really good idea to get an insight into Pinterest moving into 2020, because a lot of discussion has been happening around Pinterest recently about changes and whether it's still going to be worth pursuing in the future. And so I figured, what better way to actually get a bit more of an insight into it and a better understanding than ask some real Pinterest experts into this. It's definitely something I want to learn more about as well, so I really do hope it helps. Anastasia is she's had over, she's going to explain her story in a minute, but she has got so much experience within SEO, search engine optimization, and particularly outside of Pinterest. So she has basically combined her own knowledge of SEO with Pinterest to become this Pinterest SEO expert, and it is amazing. Honestly, like, some of the things that you learn in this podcast are going to be unreal, and she knows so much about Pinterest platform itself and the changes and stuff coming on. She has an awesome YouTube channel and has some amazing courses and things on SEO, Pinterest SEO. So without any further ado, let's get into the show. So Anastasia, welcome to Make Time Online.
Hi, Mike.
It's a real pleasure to have you here, actually, because obviously there's lots of things going on with Pinterest at the minute, and it's so good to have someone that is so knowledgeable and has such a good background and stuff with Pinterest. So I'd love to know kind of what you were doing before you started this whole blogging journey.
Well, I was studying linguistics actually at university, and then my first serious job was as an editor and translator. I was working for an online magazine, and it was about search engine optimization. So that's how I kind of jumped into all of this online marketing world. I started working in 2007. Right after my graduation. And so what I was doing there for the online magazine, I was reading and writing about Google SEO, a lot about bloggers, about how people make money online. So I think it's about 12 years now, when I think it's really a lot of time.
Wow.
And so as an editor and translator, I knew a lot of stuff about SEO and about online ads as well, AdWords in Google. But the problem was that I mostly knew it in theory, because I was just writing about and reading about other people. I was doing interviews as well. Mm-hmm. And later I started working as an online marketer myself in digital agencies, because usually these online magazines about SEO, about online marketing, they also belong to digital agencies. So I kind of just transitioned from one department to another and started working with clients as a marketer myself. Mm-hmm. And I worked for digital agencies, and then I also worked as an in-house marketer for a couple of companies, and that's how it all started. So I've been there for a while, but not with Pinterest.
Yeah,
I was working more with Google. Yeah, Google, Facebook, social media marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That sounds like a really cool background, actually, and I think it must be a really good way to kind of jump in, rather than just jumping in. You already have a good knowledge, like you say, of the theory and that kind of side. So that sounds really good.
Yeah, it was very helpful when I started then working on Pinterest.
Yeah, definitely. So I take it then it was around that time that you started to realize that people were making money from blogging and online and things.
Yeah, I saw that most of my clients obviously were making money because they were paying money to our digital agencies. Mm-hmm. And I saw that they are ready to invest a lot in SEO, in online ads, in social media marketing. And so I thought, if they're doing this, if they're investing money, then that's probably because they're making money off of this investment. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that if a business can make money online, why wouldn't a blogger? So for me, it wasn't a shock when I saw some of the bloggers started publishing income reports. It was even in those early stages that people already were publishing very huge numbers in income reports. But again, for me, as I was working full time, and I just couldn't envision myself as a business owner at that time. For me, it was like a huge risk when I was just thinking about it, because I was working for 10 years in these agencies and trying to grow in my career inside companies, right? So I couldn't imagine myself that I will just be detached of any salary of income source and will be completely dependent on myself. Yeah. And so in 2017, I just started it as a side hustle because I was pretty tired of working full time at a day job. And I also, when I moved to Portugal, I realized that here my career opportunities will be limited because maybe people don't realize this, because Portugal, it's a European country, but it's not the richest European country, so you have certain limitations here. Plus, I'm not even a native. I'm not a speaker of Portuguese language. At least now I speak a little bit better. But when I arrived, it was hard for me to find jobs that I thought that I deserved, and so I thought that online marketing is a way for me to kind of transition myself from working for others and start working for myself. So I started in 2017 as a side hustle, was still working at my day job, and it was very slow in the first year. The income was growing slowly, and I was just working a couple of hours per day, maybe on weekends a little bit more. And then at the end of the first year, I noticed that my, like I said, in Portugal, salaries are not very high. So my job income was approximately equal to what I started making with the blog by the end of the first year.
Wow.
So when I've got the first check from Mediavine company for advertising on my site, it was $1,500. It was about the same that I was making at the day job. So I said, well, I just took the risk and started working full time on my blog.
Yeah, that's so good to hear, actually, because obviously, like, I'm speaking to a lot of people that are doing this kind of thing, and it's so interesting to hear people's story of moving from that almost employee mentality to that entrepreneurial thing. And I think that's such a good way that you've done it, just doing it on the side, building up your income. And then once you realized, oh, this is actually making money, then you can sort of make that jump rather than just going all in without any income.
Yeah, I actually think that some people who do this, they take the risk, and sometimes they just burn out because they don't see with blogging, you cannot see income straight away in the first couple of months, or even maybe in the first year, you don't see that much income. And so it takes initial time investment. You don't have to invest much money, but you have to invest your time. And so you need to wait until you will start seeing some numbers. And I cannot imagine what I would be doing with my life if I was just relying on blogging income in that first year. It would be impossible. I would be really stressed about it, and probably I would just quit instead of, as a side hustle. It was just some fun, and of course I could do some other things in this time, but I knew what is my goal, and eventually I achieved it. But if I just went in right ahead and just burnt out myself in a couple of months and started working for another company, then probably I wouldn't be here talking to you about blogging. Yeah.
No, so that's something you kind of had to like stick with it then to get through those couple of months. Obviously you just said so Mediavine is an advert network. And you said you were making about $1,500 a month. Can you, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, roughly how many like page views or things that you were getting at that time to earn that kind of income?
Yeah, Mediavine pays about $20 per 1,000 of visitors. I think it was at the time that I reached about 170,000 monthly page views. It was the first time when I reached that number, and at approximately that number you need to make 1,500. But it can depend. The RP, it's called RPM.
Yeah.
So it's what they pay you for 1,000 visitors. It depends on the season, because the the last quarter of a year is usually the highest RPM. All the sites are getting highest RPM because advertisers are just burning their ad budgets at that season. And so it goes high across all the niches.
Yeah, no, definitely. That just kind of, I was just funnily enough, just doing some research earlier, and obviously AdThrive seems like it pays even more than Mediavine. Is there a reason why you don't go with AdThrive, or?
No, actually, it's interesting. Why I was thinking the same way. No, I wasn't thinking the same. I just knew that AdThrive has a much higher minimum required monthly viewership. So Mediavine accepts sites starting from 25,000 sessions per month, based on Google Analytics data, and it has to be for the last month as a minimum. But usually they might ask to see the statistics for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and then AdThrive is going to ask you for 100,000 page views monthly. Yeah. And so it looks like AdThrive is more premium kind of company. But when I actually made a switch, when I reached this 100,000 and I made the switch, I realized that AdThrive was paying me less for my a little bit. The difference wasn't that big, yeah, but it was significant. I think about $5 on average. I was getting less, And I think that maybe AdThrive is just because it's bigger and works with more. It has more publishers in the network. I think they're also older, and so they kind of built earlier than Mediavine. They built their authority on the market, so a lot of people were recommending AdThrive, and so I actually switched back to Mediavine. But I think that both companies are great. They have very good customer support. Publisher support. So, but I decided to stick with Mediavine because basically because I worked with AdThrive for 3 or 4 months, and it was consistently lower for my side with AdThrive.
Oh, that was just it's just funny enough that you started talking about that. I was literally just doing some research on it earlier, and I was kind of thinking, so AdThrive seems like the better one, but that's really good to hear from someone who's actually doing it that actually Mediavine probably pays a little bit more, but kind of sounds similar at the end of the day. But anyway, that kind of leads on really nicely to the main part of the podcast, which is obviously all about Pinterest. And so obviously you were getting some really big numbers by the end of your first year, and I'm guessing that's where Pinterest kind of comes into it.
Absolutely. So I started focusing on Pinterest in about 3 or 4, third or fourth month since I started blogging, because I started reading income reports of bigger bloggers. And I noticed this pattern that a lot of them who make money with ads, they rely heavily on Pinterest traffic, and it brings them over 80% of their traffic. And eventually that was the same thing that happened to me. Now I'm getting about 85% of traffic from Pinterest. And so since I had background with Google SEO, and I knew for sure that it takes a lot longer for Google to start recognizing your site, to see some substantial traffic from Google, because a new website has no domain authority, has no backlinks, and it makes really hard to grow with Google traffic at least in the first year as a beginner blogger. So when I started blogging in 2017, Facebook as well was already in this pay-to-play mode.
Yeah. Because
they were pushing ads really hard, and I think it was actually in 2017 that it was a huge buzz about them changing the algorithm that limited the reach of public pages. So it was obvious that getting organic traffic from Facebook and Google were not the options that for me at that time. I knew that Google is a long-term goal for me. Google SEO, I had to work on it, but I needed immediately to get some traffic to start monetizing my blog. And so I discovered Pinterest just by reading these income reports. And so I thought, well, if they had so incredible results with Pinterest, I need to start learning about it. And I started experimenting on Pinterest, and very quickly traffic started getting in the first couple of maybe months, I started seeing significant traffic growth from Pinterest. And the great thing about Pinterest is that it doesn't care about the domain authority. So any beginner can do the same. They can just start competing on Pinterest with other bigger sites that are already for multiple years in the same niche.
Yeah, no, it does sound like it's such a great way to do it, particularly for new bloggers, because exactly like you say, you don't need to wait that kind of year or so for Google to start recognizing you and getting all those backlinks and things. But something that I have kind of noticed some people saying is the kind of reliability of traffic from Pinterest, because obviously you can get a viral post or viral pin and all of a sudden get loads of traffic, and then a month later you might not be getting as much traffic as the previous month. So it's not like it can necessarily grow and grow, but that kind of, I guess, again, leads quite nicely onto all about your Pinterest SEO traffic course and kind of the main area where you focus. So do you think it is actually a sustainable, reliable way to get views each month?
Yeah, actually, it's quite a common concern for many people, that especially people who are just starting on Pinterest, they see the new sites, they see significant spikes of viral traffic, and it might look like it's not a sustainable source, but it's just an illusion for the beginners. So Pinterest is testing out your patience, because you see, Pinterest is a mixture between a social media platform and a search engine, visual search engine, and so you can leverage both things. You leverage organic search traffic and viral spikes, which work like a social media platform. And so when your site is just starting on Pinterest, it has just a few pins, not that many pins that you can rely on, and when you start getting a lot of pins linking to your site, let's say thousands of pins, then of course it doesn't happen overnight that you will see 1,000 pins. So it takes a couple of months, but then over time you will see that viral spikes don't look so drastic anymore, because there is a certain sustainable level of traffic that is coming from search on Pinterest, and also from like your pins can also appear in suggested or related pins, because they're already on the platform. So the more pins you already have linked to your pages on the platform, the better chances are that you have like a foundational traffic that is not related to viral traffic.
Right. Yeah.
It's some level that you can always upgrade this level. I think in about 6 months you will start seeing that there is a certain level where Pinterest traffic stays, and from there it goes up. When you have a viral pin, then viral pin can fade away, but it will still have some level of traffic from Pinterest. And
So I noticed in there you said it can sometimes take thousands of pins, maybe a couple of months. Does that mean that you can create thousands of pins within a couple of months? Because this is the bit where I'm not great at. I'm gonna have to admit, is actually creating the pins. It can take me ages just to create like one or two designs or something, and
you need to use Canva, because there you can play with these templates and change slightly either the background, so you can use the same text imagine I create for every post on my site at least 5 different pins, and I do this in one sit. Like in 10 minutes I can create this 5 different pins. Maybe thousands of pins was in a couple of months. It wasn't what I meant. I thought I meant that when you reach this number, like thousands of pins, then you can see this sustainable level of traffic from Pinterest. But if you have a site with content already, if you imagine you worked with Google before and you came to Pinterest, it's actually possible for you to start creating. You don't need to work on content. You already have it on your site. You just need to create pins, so it works much faster for those sites that already have content.
Yeah.
Compared to other bloggers. Yeah. Compared to other bloggers that are just starting out. Yeah, and I wanted to finish that the thought about Pinterest and Google, because people usually compare Pinterest as unstable traffic source with Google, and in my experience, Google, in this over 10 years that I've been in the market, Google had a lot more drastic algorithm changes than Pinterest had in the last couple of years that I'm on Pinterest. Even last year, Google penalized a bunch of sites in the health and wealth loss niches because the platform decided to give priority to sites that had that they were considering trustworthy sources of medical advice. So this is just an example of one niche that was affected just last year. Google doesn't have those updates so often nowadays as they had in back like 10 years ago, but they still do this, and sometimes you can lose about half of your traffic overnight from Google. So you cannot say that Google is very, very reliable and completely unchanged. That algorithm is changing all the time as well.
Yeah, I remember even very recently, lots of people posting like in the Facebook groups and things about this new algorithm change and like, traffic halving overnight or something ridiculous like that. So I know it's obviously not as stable either, or not as stable as what some people might consider it to be. But that does kind of beg the question then, with all of these, there are obviously something going on in Pinterest at the minute. You keep hearing all these people saying about all these changes and things coming in. Do you think Pinterest might go through a similar kind of process to what Google was over the last 10 years, because Pinterest is a little bit newer and still finding its feet a little bit?
Yeah, sure. They're definitely working on improving the algorithm to fight spam, and sometimes they have the searches that they have like a major cleanup on the platform, removing spam. That actually also was happening a lot with Google when they were fighting keyword stuffing. And then it was satellite sites when people were creating huge networks of sites that were all linking back, making backlinks to the same main domain. So there was a history with Google making the cleanups on Pinterest. Unfortunately, there is also a lot of spam. And what they do is that they probably test different algorithms that can allow them to do it on the algorithmic level, as opposed to doing this manually. And when they do, when they roll out those updates, sometimes a lot of alleged bloggers get blocked for a while until Pinterest gets back to them and manually unblocks them, because they might trigger some spam filters. Some of the behaviors that those bloggers were practicing could be similar to spammy sites, what spammy sites were doing. Anyway, this is just part of the issues that people are talking about on Facebook groups for bloggers. And then there is a big change that Pinterest became a public company, and now they're pushing harder their advertising on the platform. So a lot of people are worried about organic Pinterest, the reach of their organic pins compared to advertising. And I would say that this change will be a transitional time, maybe a couple of years. I don't think it will be a drastic change, because if you remember how Facebook did it, there was a time when a lot of bloggers were leveraging organic traffic and viral traffic from Facebook for a couple of years, until they reduced the distribution of public pages and started favoring the sponsored posts.
Yeah.
And I think that on Pinterest we still have some time, because this transition cannot happen overnight. They cannot. They have to still earn the trust of advertisers. And there are not so many yet businesses that are advertising on Pinterest. So it will take them time until we'll start seeing that organic traffic is getting significantly lower on Pinterest.
So, but do you think at some stage it will be similar to Facebook, and that kind of organic traffic might just disappear in, the similar way to Facebook, how it's happened on Facebook?
I think it cannot disappear completely like it happened on Facebook, because Pinterest is still a search engine, and so it has the features of like Google. It has a search feature, and they have still to show some search results. It will not be just they cannot show only sponsored posts, because then regular users will hate the platform if it's just promoted pins all over the place. They will have to still maintain some balance between showing the organic pins and advertised promoted pins. But Google definitely went into the direction, goes over the years into the direction of monopolizing their search results with not only ads, but they also, they use their maps and all the other features, like they take snippets from the website and show, so they can show all the answer inside their search results, so people don't need to click through to the actual website. So, well, unfortunately, all companies, I think, are moving in the direction of taking the majority of the space for their own products. But that's life. Today is Pinterest, tomorrow it can be another platform. That's how online world works.
Yeah, no, definitely. So obviously, I think it probably sounds even more like having those kind of Pinterest SEO tactics and things like that is going to be even more important moving forward with all of these changes. So could you maybe just kind of explain sort of the brief? I've seen some like YouTube videos and stuff that you do, and when I saw one the other day, and I was just like, well, I haven't ever thought that before. Like, it's just so obvious when you laid it all out, and I just had never even thought about it on Pinterest. But using it as a search engine, like you say, I wondered if you could just sort of give us a little brief snippet of kind of what your Pinterest SEO traffic strategy is.
Yep, sure. I'll try to make it simple. So first, we need to assume that Pinterest is not just a social media platform, but it's also a visual search engine. And we also need to understand how people use Pinterest. People go to Pinterest for inspiration. That it's slightly different from how people look for answers on Google, because on Google people usually type very long. It's called long tail keywords because they have several words, like 3 or 5 words, and on Pinterest usually the keywords are much shorter. Pinterest says that it's about 75% of keywords on Pinterest just have 1 to 3 words. It's very short. So the majority of Pinterest users are just looking for inspiration, not for the exact answer. And so when they look through the search results, they can scroll down up to 60. On average, Pinterest some time ago, Pinterest published statistics that on average people can scroll down about 60 pins. So you have a lot of chances that you don't have to be in the top 5 pins. People can still look through find your pin if they're scrolling down a little bit. And the majority of Pinterest users are also on mobile devices, and this also affects the number of words that they can type into this search field on Pinterest. And then Pinterest shows search suggestions based on the interests of that user and previous pins that they saved on, or boards that user created. There are a lot of factors that come into play when they decide what search suggestions to show. And Pinterest SEO helps you to show your pins in those search results, or also in smart feed, because people on Pinterest can be in 2 modes. It can be in active searching mode when they are typing the query, and it can be just browsing, like on Instagram or like on Facebook, just scrolling down the feed. But then when they do it, when they're just browsing on Pinterest, Pinterest is trying to guess what are the interests of that particular user. And let's say, for example, a user looked for home decor ideas a day ago, and then you created a pin 1 day later, and your pin can still be found by that user just because Pinterest remembered the interests of the user. And when your new pin shows up in Pinterest Smart Feed, that user could find it. So Pinterest remembers. In a way, it's similar to Google, because Pinterest will remember your previous search history. It will also take into account which pins you are saving on the platform, what are the titles of your boards that you're creating on Pinterest, and then based on it's not the full list, okay? It's just some types of behaviors that Pinterest is tracking to understand your interests, and then they start showing you pins based on those interests in the smart feed. So to optimize your pins, you will have to add relevant keywords to the titles of the pins and to the description. Yeah, pin is not just an image, it always has a pin title and a description. It's textual information. And you need to make sure that you have keywords in those titles and descriptions. And also for content creators, or that's how Pinterest calls us, the website owners, they call us content creators. We need to make sure that we have rich pins working correctly. Rich pins, they only work if you have your website verified on Pinterest, and they will be fetching the keyword information from your site. So if you have a SEO title on the blog post or on your page on the site, it will bring rich pin will bring this information, metadata, to your pin itself. So all of this together, so all the keywords that you have on the attached to the pin, they really matter for how your pins are going to get traffic from Pinterest. Because if you don't have any keywords, Pinterest doesn't know what your pin is about, doesn't know who could be the users interested in your pin, and then you don't get targeted audience, right? So to get targeted audience, you need to add this keyword-rich information to your pins.
So it matters what's on your. So it matters the words on your pin. It matters the words in your title, your description on the pin, and it also matters what's actually in your post as well.
Yes, because Pinterest will. That's absolutely. And Pinterest can even look into the URL of your post for the keywords. So Pinterest will definitely will look for the match between what your pin has on the pin title and description on Pinterest platform and what you have on your website. Because then if you don't have any match between them, then it's called spam, because you're sending users to something that they didn't expect to see on your site.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen that pop up all the time as well. You know, it says at the bottom, did this website help or something? And so you either click yes or no, and I guess that's kind of helping the Pinterest algorithm and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, and there is one also another important factor that helps Pinterest distribute pins and understand what the pins are about. It's the concept of Pinterest boards, because when you're saving a pin on Pinterest, you have to save it to a board. So a board is a collection of pins, and each board must have some keywords in the title. And then when you're saving a pin, the board where you're saving the pin for the first time on the platform has to be the most relevant to your pin title. So you have to also think about the keywords in your boards. This can affect the future of your pin.
I do have a question on this, actually, because using Tailwind, I understand Tailwind, when you schedule anything from Tailwind, it counts as a new pin. So does that mean, well, obviously every time if it's a new pin, you can't always schedule the new pin to the best board, because from Tailwind, you're putting it into numerous boards at the same time. So how do you overcome that?
Pinterest said that they don't mind if you save your pin to several boards. They actually recommend saving to at least 5 relevant boards. Wow. So you need to look first for the most relevant board. So if we're talking about Christmas decoration ideas, then the first board ideally should have at least the keyword Christmas on it, or Christmas decorations, even better. But then the second board could be, for example, it could be just home decor. It's still about decoration, but it's already a broader board, but it's still relevant. And then you could save, imagine if on that pin image you had a Christmas tree, and you might have another board that's also relevant, and it's called Christmas tree decorations. And so you will save to the third board that is still relevant, but it's not exactly the same keyword on the board, in the board title. So why Pinterest recommends doing this is because this way you're showing your pin to different types of users who searched for different keywords, but your pin is still relevant to all of these users, still relevant to all of these keywords.
Okay. So
that
if you do it from Tailwind, would that count? That doesn't count as a repin for that one pin though? Or does Pinterest kind of pick out, oh, this is the same pin, so we know that they've put it on these different boards? Or do you have to manually repin and pin from Tailwind, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Start touching these grounds when Pinterest doesn't like really to explain very well this difference, because there was manipulation in the past with manually repinning, and there was another scheduler that was doing this. It's called direct repins. It was doing like manual repins. So you didn't have to manually do this, but this scheduler was doing it on your behalf. Tailwind cannot do this because they're using an official API. And so they have to comply with Pinterest's terms. And so Tailwind is just creating fresh pins. I think Pinterest that didn't like manual repins because they were complete duplicates of that original pin. Right. And when Tailwind is creating a pin, Pinterest considers this as a fresh pin, and what Tailwind does, it fetches your post SEO or page SEO title and fetches your description from your site.
Sorry, I've got more questions that are coming. Let's keep coming to me. But so obviously, I've heard a lot of these, the kind of manual repin strategies and things like that, and obviously the whole big group boards thing. From my understanding, those strategies are kind of dying off on Pinterest. Pinterest likes the fresh content, and Tailwind technically counts as fresh content.
Yes.
I just wondered though, how important is it to actually get, one, repins from, like, is there any point in you ever repinning your own content manually to different boards? And two, is there any point in still doing the whole applying to these loads of group boards and getting onto as many group boards as possible and, putting your pins all over these?
So I will first answer about group boards. That it was in the middle of 2018 that Pinterest announced that the group boards, they were not created for this purpose, how content creators are using them. They were not supposed to be for promotion of pins. They were for collaborations of smaller groups of bloggers. So basically they just wanted to say that they want to reduce the distribution of these spammy group boards that have thousands of contributors, and where a board, it doesn't even have any specific topic anymore because there is just tons of spam there. And these group boards were actually hurting the accounts of people who created them, and also of the people who were saving pins on those boards, because they had very low engagement rates and they had a lot of spam. So I recommend now to all my students to be very selective and spend not more than 10% of their time trying to apply to group boards, because before it was actually a strategy until the middle of 2018. And then after this algorithm change, a lot of people who had more group boards on their accounts than actually their own boards noticed that the traffic dropped a lot. I actually was one of them. I was working a lot on group boards, and then I had to change the strategy and started creating a lot of boards on my own account. It was in the middle of 2018. I lost a lot of traffic from Pinterest at that time.
So it was creating lots of boards yourself, so like around the same keywords, but just creating them, and they're your own personal boards, and that way you can put your pins onto at least 5 relevant boards, like you say.
Yeah. Yes, that's what Pinterest recommends. And the other question was about manually pinning, right? Repinning your own pins. So this strategy, I think that it still works, but you have to be very careful. And one of the workarounds is to use Pinterest app, because it will show you when you're trying to save a pin. So on Pinterest, you have Activity tab. It shows you the pins saved by other users or by Tailwind Scheduler. These are in Activity tab, you have original pins. They're called fresh pins. And so when you're using that tab, most of the pins will be considered new original pins, and you can safely repin them to your boards, because Pinterest will not give you a warning that you already saved it to this board.
Yeah.
Basically, Pinterest is saying that they don't want duplicate pins on the same board more often than once in 3 months. That's the minimum setting in Tailwind Smart Loop feature. And so when you're doing this manually, you can repin those pins they were created by other users from your site. And usually Pinterest considers them fresh pins, and you can save them to your boards safely, because the app on desktop, you cannot see these warnings anyways, but on mobile app, it will always show you if you already saved the pin. If Pinterest considered it as a duplicate, it will show you already saved this pin to this board.
Yeah.
If it doesn't show you the warning, then it means that Pinterest considers it as an original pin, and you can repin it manually.
Well, yeah, I'm really sorry. I keep going off on a tangent and keep getting sidetracked by different questions. But so anyway, to kind of get back on track a little bit, if we were to use your like SEO techniques and tactics and things like that, so getting the keywords, particularly get the keywords in your pin, your title, description, your group boards, your post, and I will actually what I will do is I'll put a video in the show notes, the one that I saw the other day, which kind of you were explaining how you can find these keywords. So, you can go into the search on Pinterest, and also you can use the ads and the little special technique that you use there. I think it's easier to see in a video anyway. Explaining that verbally is going to be hard for people if they're running or in the car or whatever, however they're listening to it.
Right.
So I'll do that. But I'd love to know, how long will it take to start kind of seeing some results and seeing that traffic increasing if you were to kind of use those SEO techniques?
I would give Pinterest at least 3 or 4 months, because it's still a search engine. So you will need Pinterest will need time to first understand what your boards are about, to start indexing all the pins that you are saving to your boards. And then it will need to collect the information how users are engaging with your pins, to which boards they're saving your pins. It all takes time. So I would say that you can start seeing some results in about 3 or 4 months, but you need to be consistent in these 3 months. And because I know that sometimes people are just very actively saving pins in the first month, and they see some viral pin, and then this viral pin drops, because all viral pins eventually fall. And then they get discouraged because just this one viral pin lost virality, and they stop saving new pins for a while. They stop working on new boards, and Pinterest immediately will notice this decline in your activity. It requires consistency as much as the other platforms. Like on YouTube, you have to publish at least once a week, or depends, of course, on how many subscribers you have. But if you're a small channel, minimum is once a week, or you will never grow. Yeah. And at least that's what I heard. I think the big channels, they can afford making, like the ones that have millions of followers, they can afford publishing once in 2 weeks. But when you're small, you have to publish at least once a week. Then on Instagram, you have to publish every day.
Yeah.
So Pinterest wants every day, and I would say about 10 pins per day is the minimum you should do.
Yeah, and I've even heard people saying, like 80 to 100 pins a day, especially if you're using Tailwind in the scheduler. I think that probably makes it a little bit easier.
It makes, yes, and if you have a lot of content. So it all depends on how much content you have. If you have a small site, or you're just a beginner, you will need to reach that point when you will need those 80 pins. So sometimes I have to save that many, because imagine I decided that I will cover, now it's a holiday season, I want to cover Thanksgiving, Halloween, and Christmas, and I will create at least 2 or 3 posts for each of these holidays, and I need to create several boards for each of these holidays. When I create a board, I need to save a lot of popular pins to start building those boards, pins of other people, not just mine, but pins from other people, just to build the boards, like 20 or 30 pins. So in a day, it can easily reach, just because that is the active stage of when I'm working on a lot of content, it can easily reach those 80 pins. It's not because I'm a spammer, it's because I need to save, because I have a lot of posts coming in and a lot of pins. Yeah,
that makes sense, definitely. And so another question that I've kind of heard different people asking and getting a little bit confused about is this possible? Like, is this technique possible? And is Pinterest possible for any niche? Is it possible for people to get traffic from any niche that they're putting on there? Like, for example, could you maybe say what your first, well, I don't know if you can say what your first blog post or your first blog actually the niche was, where you were started getting like 170,000 views.
It's a funny story, because when I started the blog, I was reading those income reports of bigger bloggers, and I noticed that the bloggers that make more money, they are blogging about blogging, and they're teaching others how to make blogs. So that's what I started. I started writing those blog posts, how to start a blog, or how to build a WordPress site, or something like that. And then I wasn't getting much traffic to those kinds of posts from Pinterest. And now I can tell that there is definitely a difference in terms of the volume of traffic between niches. So if you are in a business niche, or if you're writing for bloggers, definitely you will get lower traffic volume than if you write about recipes, home decor, or DIY or fashion, because you have to remember that about 80% of users on Pinterest are women, and they are not coming to Pinterest. Usually people are not coming to Pinterest to learn how to build a business. They're coming there to get inspiration about their everyday interests, such as these topics that I mentioned. So, but you also need to understand that there is still traffic for those, because those women might be on Pinterest, might be also interested in becoming bloggers as well. But you still have to, for example, if you have a car repairing business or something like that, or a local restaurant, that doesn't make sense to try get traffic from Pinterest, because people will not look for your local restaurant on Pinterest, basically. So you just need to understand what is your business, and if Pinterest can help, Pinterest traffic can help with your goals. Some business niches can bring you lower amount of traffic, but because you can monetize it, so with higher ticket products like courses, for example, you don't need that much traffic to make significant amount of income. And when you are monetizing with ads, like with Mediavine, or if you are advertising with Google AdSense, then you really need a lot of traffic to monetize it and get some decent income from it.
Yeah, no, that's that is kind of my understanding of it. It's quite nice to hear someone that really knows about Pinterest to kind of explain that, because I definitely think it's, from what I've kind of noticed, like just using the platform a bit, is that it seems almost like the big generic thing, like you say, recipes, home decor, fashion, DIY, even a lot of health and fitness and stuff. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, as well.
Those kind of things seem to be super popular on Pinterest, and particularly those, big list posts and how-tos and things like that. Those are the kind of things that seem to get the massive repins and
you've got to try it.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like there's certain niches which work better on Pinterest than other ones.
Yeah, it's true. But I also can add here that on average, I would say from all the platforms, even from Google, I think that a site that is publishing recipes, a big site or a home decor site, will get more traffic than a site that is talking about some personal development or I don't know, business growth. Because just people look for those terms and for those keywords more often than for business growth.
Yeah. No, that's so true.
That's life.
That's very true. It's a good point. So anyway, if you could go back to, like you say, so you do live in Portugal now?
Yes.
Maybe that would be a good time. So when you first moved to Portugal, obviously, like you say, you didn't want to just jump into becoming a full-time business owner and doing all this straight away. But imagine that first day when you actually moved to Portugal, when you didn't really know what you were doing and you didn't really know, like you say, it was hard to find job opportunities and things like that. What are 3 pieces of advice you would give to yourself if you could go back to that day?
First of all, I would start writing content that is popular on Pinterest, because that's for me, that was my basically like my destiny that was working for me. And only when I started writing about things that on my blog, about DIY, food, and everything that people like on Pinterest, that was the time when I started making income with the blog. So I would just recommend myself instead of looking to the income reports of bigger bloggers who were selling courses, and instead of pretending that I'm also like them, because I was just a beginner at that time. So I was trying to teach people, but I didn't have any authority or background at that time. I didn't have my own income reports even to show and to write about, and to be an example for anyone. So if I gave it a time and focused on in the first year on things that would fit better my position at that time, I think I would start getting income faster a little bit.
No,
maybe 6 months earlier than I started. And I would also recommend myself to stop underestimating myself, because I just realized in the process that I can learn and achieve as a blogger a lot more than I ever expected when I started. And I think a lot of beginners in this blogging world feel like everything is so overwhelming at the beginning. There are so many things that they need to learn: how to build a website, how they need to learn about Google SEO, about Pinterest. They also everyone is telling them to start building an email list, and they have to learn all these different tools. And so a lot of people just give up at the very beginning. And I would say that if it was me as well, just stop worrying about these things, because every one step at a time, you will learn everything.
Yeah.
And you will acquire all the skills that you need as a blogger, even if you're doing it in your free time while still working full time. Just need to be patient and don't expect to have the same thousands of income in the first couple of months. Mm-hmm. It's not gonna happen. You need to work your way through to those big income reports.
Yeah. So setting realistic expectations as well, obviously, is pretty important.
Yeah, and one more thing, because you said you asked me for 3 things, so sorry, yeah, I would say yeah, there's 2. And I actually discovered very recently that YouTube works really great for me, and I regret that I didn't start my channel at least 1 year before I started, because I had a course for 1 year, my Pinterest SEO secrets traffic course, and I started only 1 year later the YouTube channel. And when I started it, immediately I started getting a lot of authority on the market, and people started contacting me for interviews, and students started enrolling just from the YouTube channel. Like they literally go from YouTube to my course and buy and book my, book my Pinterest management services as well. So it works like a magic. And I think it for me, and I regret that I didn't start it earlier, because even with a small channel that I have, it literally in 1 month, it doubled my income with courses, and now it's even more than the double. Wow. Compared to when I started the YouTube channel. I think it works really great for educational type of products. When you're trying to teach people to do something, you first need to show your face, or teach them something. Maybe it's a small first step. You need to show them why would they even spend their time on Pinterest. They have to first see some of your lessons in the free format before they trust you to buy a course or to buy any services from you.
No, it's very true. And just from the few videos and things I saw the other day, it's just seeing you like sharing your screen and things like that. It just makes it so easy for you to learn and just pick up from that. So I can definitely see how YouTube works really well.
Yep.
So if people wanted to kind of get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, first they can check my YouTube videos, and they just need to search for Anastasia Blogger on YouTube, and there will be my channel. And they can, if they have some questions, they can just maybe leave a question as a comment on the latest video. It's one way, because I'm always checking, because I'm really dedicated to this channel. I want to grow it faster. So
that's very
I'm
true.
checking.
You did reply to my comment I put on straight away.
Yeah, I'm trying to regularly check those, even more often than questions through my Facebook page. But there I also can answer. And well, I have my email as well on the site. If you find it somewhere on the about page, cool. Maybe anastasiablogger.com. Yeah. Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Anastasia. I'm very aware that I've kept you for quite a while, but
no. It was a pleasure.
I think there's so much you can kind of talk about with Pinterest. So it's the never-ending subject, isn't it? So, but I really do appreciate all your time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Wowza. If you're like me, then that episode was insane. There was just so much in there. And just everything, every time that she said something, it just almost triggered like another question and something else I wanted to dive into deeper. So I'm glad I've got some more people coming on the show in the next couple of weeks as well. But there's so much to take away from that episode. I've managed to narrow it down to just 5 key takeaways, which may help anyway. So number 1, aim to get onto a good ad network as quickly as possible. That's really the target. From if you're a new blogger using Pinterest traffic, that should be your goal. If you can get onto an ad network quickly, a good one quickly, that's how you can all of a sudden start generating this more, it's not passive income, because you still have to produce the content and put the stuff out there on Pinterest and everything, but it just means that you don't need to do anything else. Everyone talks about like affiliate marketing and selling courses and blah 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 blah. If you have ads on there and you've got a good niche that fits with Pinterest, then that is going to be the best way to make money from Pinterest. Number 2 is that group boards and manual repinning does help beginners, and it still is effective, but it's not as effective as it once was. And this is something that has come up quite a lot in probably the last year and a half, since, kind of as she said, since 2018, when mid 2018, I think it was April, they became an official business. So they are trying to basically promote more ads, which is where this whole uncertainty has come from. So it's not as effective as it once was, but it is still pretty useful and definitely worth doing if you are a beginner, because then you get the access to all of the people that are on the group board, that follow that group board. If it's a good group board, that is key. And the whole manual repinning your own pins to different boards and things, it's kind of like, as Anastasia said, it's more important to have your own group board, your own boards, your own personal boards that are specific for whatever that pin is. You don't want to just be spamming it into blogging heaven or whatever the group board is called. Just some generic blogging group board is pretty much useless pinning into that, and it can actually have it can actually harm your account. So you don't want to be doing that anymore. Number 3 is that pinners are mainly looking, or Pinterest users I should say, are mainly looking for inspiration. They're not necessarily looking for a specific answer to a question. So things like list posts and how-to posts are going to do very well on Pinterest, because that's what people are kind of interested in. If they're thinking, oh, I'm a little bit hungry, what am I going to make for dinner? And then they come past 50 easy, healthy dinners, that's something that they're going to be clicking on. So you can see how those kind of, the certain niches, certain things, certain topics that are going to be better suited to Pinterest than others. Like Anastasia said, if you're a small business, like a small restaurant or a car washing place locally, you don't want to be advertising it on Pinterest, because people are not going to go there. They're going to go to Google to find that. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that Pinterest SEO is so important moving forward, and there's particularly 6 things that you want to do to utilize your SEO. So for starters, your actual words that you put on your pin images is important. You must have your keyword in there. You also want your keyword. So let's say, for example, healthy dinner recipes. That's your keyword. That's something that people type in. It's nice and short, generic. It's something that people are going to be looking for. So you want 50 healthy dinner recipes in your actual image. Then you want that on the title. So you need to make sure you have the rich pins enabled, and that means that you can set a title and a description which also says healthy dinner recipes, and then you want to pin it, particularly your first pin, onto the main board. So if you have a board that says healthy dinner recipes, pin it to that one. That would be the best one for that. Then you also, that's 4. Your 5th one needs to be in your URL. So your actual website URL, you need to have healthy dinner recipes in your URL, maybe even just that. And number 6, you actually need the words to be on the website itself. So if the website link that it takes them to, if it's something to do with losing weight fast using these exercises, it's not the same thing. So you need to make sure you're linking it to an appropriate website with those words on the page as well. So 6 places to utilize SEO on Pinterest. And number 5 is write content that works on Pinterest. So remember, as we've kind of said, not every niche is going to be best suited to it. I think there's, the main ones are recipes, DIY, home decor, and fashion. Those are going to be your main ones. Health and fitness kind of goes in there as well, but typically if you are in a health and fitness thing, you might put in, you can easily link to recipes, and that's the main one that's going to get you the most traffic really. Other niches such as marketing and business and self-development is not really going to be super effective on Pinterest. It does get some traffic, but it's really, the big players, people that have some sort of proof, and they might even have the main traffic that they're really going to get are things such as, this is how I make $10,000 in a month from Pinterest. So actually it's just kind of, Pinterest marketing or money, really. Is making money and things like that, and budgeting. That's where they're probably going to get most of their traffic from Pinterest. It doesn't mean that their SEO on Google, it doesn't mean that they won't be getting traffic from that. So I really do hope that episode was useful. Next few weeks we're having some more people from Pinterest on, but be sure to check out the show notes where it has all the links to get in contact with Anastasia. Drop us a comment on there if there's anything that any questions or anything you want to know more about, and definitely go and check out her website where you can get all this information. Loads of it is there for free, and also has a Pinterest SEO traffic secrets course. But yeah, I do hope that was useful, guys. Thanks for listening in to this episode of Make Time Online. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes, and please take a moment to write a review for our podcast in the App Store. Keep changing for the better, guys. Take care.